find you, love you, marry you, and live without shame.
This line of dialogue is like a ray of light, yet it also carries endless sorrow, piercing through the very soul of the movie Atonement. And for the man who utters these words, there lies behind him all of that has been ruthlessly toyed with by fate, as well as a sin that a woman can never atone for in her entire life. The story begins in 1935 on an English manor. In the sweltering summer days, the chirping of cicadas fills the air. Bryony, a 13-year-old girl full of fantasies, is immersed in her own creative world. Her elder sister, Cecilia, is the most dazzling presence in the manor, and she has developed a secret affection for Robbie, the son of a servant. One afternoon, Cecilia gets her clothes completely wet while picking up the fragments of a vase that has fallen into the fountain. She appears gracefully in front of Robbie. This scene is glimpsed by Bryony through the window. In the eyes of this innocent girl who has no experience of the world, this becomes an unsightly picture, and a seed of doubt is thus planted. Subsequently, Robbie asks Bryony to deliver a letter to Cecilia, but by mistake, Bryony takes a letter filled with explicit love words. After secretly reading it, Bryony's disgust for Robbie intensifies. Soon after, she catches Robbie and Cecilia having an intimate interaction in the study, which makes her firmly believe that Robbie has ill intentions. At the same time, a distinguished guest, Paul Marshall, arrives at the manor. During the welcoming dinner, the twin brothers suddenly go missing, and everyone is in a panic as they search for them. Bryony sees her cousin Laura being violated in the woods, and she firmly accuses Robbie of being the perpetrator. Based solely on her identification, the police arrest Robbie and send him to prison. Cecilia firmly believes in Robbie's innocence. She breaks off relations with her family and becomes a nurse. After Robbie is released from prison, in order to have his prison record expunged, he chooses to join the army. Before he goes on an expedition, they meet by chance, embrace each other affectionately, and make promises about the future. The cruelty of war is beyond imagination. During the Dunkirk evacuation, Robbie witnesses his comrades falling one by one around him. Illness, hunger, and death are always lurking. But he always has a belief in his heart, which is to return to Cecilia. However, fate plays a cruel trick on him. Eventually, due to sepsis, he collapses on the eve of the evacuation. And Cecilia also dies in a bombing 3 months later, when the underground river overflows and floods. When Bryony grows up, she finally realizes how serious her mistake was back then. She understands that the real perpetrator is Paul. But because of her jealousy and misunderstanding, she has ruined the lives of Robbie and her sister. This feeling of guilt haunts her all the time, causing her to give up the opportunity to study at Cambridge University and become an army nurse, trying to atone for her sin in this way. In the end, Bryony writes a novel titled Atonement, based on the story of her sister and Robbie. In the book, she gives them a happy ending, allowing them to live an ordinary and sweet life in a cottage by the seaside. But the reality is cold. All that beauty is just a dream woven with words by her, used to soothe her battered soul. Bryony's wrong judgment, in her youth, shows us the fragility and ignorance of human nature, while her lifelong atonement makes us feel the power of conscience. When we make mistakes, do we have the courage to make up for them with our whole lives, just like Bryony?